Yo, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to Bullony Basketball. You know, it's a special episode because I got my guy, familiar face on the channel, my guy, Suns Geek. How's it going, my man?
It's going fantastic, man. Glad to be recording once again together, collaborating, working together, man. Thank you so much for having me. Looking forward to talking some basketball, man. How you doing, bro? You doing good?
I'm doing good. Appreciate you asking. And like you said, it's been a minute. I think the last time we collabed on at least my channel was the tournament for Bullony Basketball last year. So we're gonna see. There is a mini game at the end that we will get to, but for now we got a lot of topics that we're gonna touch on, and I think there's no better place to start than this injury to Trae Young, who is expected to miss 4 weeks with hand surgery. I guess technically it's like finger surgery, but I don't know. This sounds weird to say.
Yeah.
Yeah, like what do you think? A lot of people are saying like maybe he's played his last game in Atlanta, and I'll give you the floor. Like, do you think this could have an impact on Atlanta's future?
Well, yeah. I mean, anytime you're missing your franchise guy, even if it's just for a game, I think it affects the future. You know what I mean? But first off, I've always been a Trae Young fan. That's just me personally. Especially because he's been one of the better guards and players in the league since he got drafted and everything. The dude's just a gym rat, in my opinion. And you could maybe even call him a little underrated among some of the better point guards in the league, in my personal opinion. But I just feel bad for him, man. But to hopefully try to answer your question here, I don't think so, because if the Atlanta Hawks were even thinking of trading Trae Young, they would have to be completely shifting their franchise in a different direction.
Mm.
And I know they've had a lot of struggles since they went to the Eastern Conference Finals. What was it, back in 2021 or whatever?
Mm.
But honestly, I think DeJounte Murray would probably go first. I was surprised when he didn't get traded in the deadline. You know what I mean?
Same.
And in my personal opinion, man, they have a rising star, a really good player in Jalen Johnson right there to be one of their building blocks. So unless they completely slap Trae Young in the face and say, "Sorry, we're trading you, man. Goodbye. Thank you for your service," I can't see them trading him. But it is a big loss, man. I mean, they're like what? Like they're not even in technically the playoff race. Weren't they, like, last time I checked, I think they're like in the play-in or something like that, or pretty low in the standings, if I'm correct.
Mm.
So anytime you're gonna miss your best player for an extended period of time, man, definitely hurts. But yeah, and look, I am a big believer in anything could happen during the offseason. I mean, if you would have told me a couple summers ago that Rudy Gobert was going to get traded like right in the middle of the summer, I wouldn't believe you. So it's like anything could happen, but I doubt it. I think he's going to stay a Hawk unless things just get like completely terrible and they can't really do much with DeJounte Murray. They can't really get enough pieces around Trae Young. But I think he's there for at least right now, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I don't know if it will go right now. Especially like I think this offseason is mostly about like getting rid of guys like DeJounte Murray, as you said.
Exactly.
Like I'm with you. I don't know why he didn't get traded, especially because like it seems like the team is shifting into a weird dynamic, and he might honestly, with Jalen Johnson's like rising, he might start seeing a lesser role a little bit, like in the offense. And so with that, it's like you might want to try and get what you can out of him right now. Like he's still young and he can still contribute on a lot of
Yeah.
teams, but that was a little surprising to me. And like, yeah, it just like I've said it over and over again, and I think we even like talked about it. I think in real time, like the Hawks making the conference finals was probably the worst thing that could have happened because
Unfortunately.
it set them up for failure a little bit. Like now, every year since, it's like if they don't make it at least there or further, then it's going to be seen as a disappointment. And like I think most people realize like that wasn't going to happen again. Like they could be a
Yeah.
playoff team for sure, but I don't even know like if people expected them to win a playoff series since. And right now it's like not looking good at all. Like I talk about my Bulls have been embarrassing. Like they're below us. like that's how it's like just not looking good for the Hawks. And you know I feel like there just needs to be like a complete shift with that team. And
That's what I'm saying.
this is Trae Young's 6th year with the team, but I think they won't get rid of him right away, of course, and I don't think he'll request. I think for him to leave, it would be requesting a trade anyways.
Yeah.
But I could see after next season, maybe if this is the same thing, that he could do that. Because, I mean, let's face it, they're getting embarrassed most nights. They're playing no defense. I mean, it had to sting when they were home and they saw the guy they drafted, Luka Doncic, drop 73 on their head.
Yep.
And then traded for Trae Young. So, like, I don't know. It's just like there's a lot wrong with the Hawks, and I don't know what they do to really solve it other than give some of these young guys that have shown progression like more of a chance.
And like that's where it's a little weird with the Hawks too. Like I don't know if it's been reported on or if there's been any information, but like I understand why they didn't trade DeJounte Murray, but I think a reason for that is because like the new CBA rules and the salary cap and all that stuff, the second or third apron, whatever it's called, and all that. But like at the same time, clearly you're not that good. And at best, you're what, like a play-in team, like I said. Like, so I don't really know the direction of the Hawks. And even though I was just hyping up Jalen Johnson, it's like, are you really just going to build around Trae Young and Jalen Johnson and maybe a couple other young guys? Like, they're just really not that good. And now with this injury, they're probably going to be even worse. I don't know what the direction of the Hawks is. I think DeJounte Murray has to go at some point. And that's nothing against him. I think he's a good player and everything, but just you gotta build something around Trae Young before he actually does request out. And then do the Hawks just go for a full-on rebuild mode? Then, you know what I mean? If they trade Trae Young, like I don't know the direction of the team. I would not want to be in their front office right now.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it's been set up for failure. They got to do something. Like, you know, obviously I think like moving on from John Collins was a little bit of a start, but I think like, you know, you still got guys like Capella there and, you know, even guys like maybe Bogdanovich, where it's like they just don't fit the timeline for what is good for the Hawks. A lot of these guys are coming into their prime now, and it doesn't look like that in the standings, you know, like it just looks like a team that's like, we're starting our rebuild type of thing.
Yep.
So, I don't know. Did you have any other things you would add on that? Or?
No, I think that's it.
Okay, so we will progress here. We will move on to the next topic, which is talking about all these road warriors in the West. You know, it's been kind of insane, and I was just trying to like look it up to be sure. Last year, only the Sacramento Kings and the LA Clippers were above 500 on the road in the West, and the Clippers were like really 500 because they were like 21-20. And this year, right now, the top 8 teams in the Western Conference and the Golden State Warriors, who are kind of hovering between 9th and 10th, but right now they are 9th. They're all over 500 on the road. So what do you think this is going to mean maybe for as we get closer to the playoffs, that maybe home court advantage might not seem as special this year in the postseason? And do you think that could create like maybe crazy ends to playoff series?
Yeah, I in a way, I kind of had a tweet about this, but I wasn't really talking about the road. I was really just talking about like the standings from 5 to 11, if you will. I had a tweet about this yesterday, and I was just talking about the Western Conference. I truly believe that like it is going to be a roller coaster. Like we're recording this on February 27th, man. We still got 2 months of basketball left. I feel like maybe even in the East too, but specifically in the West, it's going to be like a ladder, just up and down. These standings are going to just be crazy. But I also do believe this, man, that winning on the road is important, whether you have home court advantage or not. Even if it's just the regular season, man, winning on the road is important. So I really feel like that will play a factor down the road. But at the same time, man, it's kind of tricky because I don't know what teams are like legit, and it's like your guess is as good as mine. Like I'm sure you and I can maybe put together like 5 real true contenders, and then the rest are just playoff teams or borderline like play-in teams. And that's why I do think winning on the road is important. But at the same time, man, it's like anything could happen from now all the way to even just early April. You know what I mean? And winning on the road is important. And if you're my Phoenix Suns, who I'm sure we're going to talk about later, you got to win as many games as possible. Not that I'm scared that, you know, let's say my Suns, for example, aren't going to make the playoffs, but you could be a a fifth seed one day and then dropped to like the eighth seed. You know what I mean? Like it wasn't too long ago, man, that the Clippers were the first seed for like 24 hours. And I think like either they lost or like another team won and they dropped to like 4. So I don't really know if that like answers your question necessarily, but every win matters, man.
Yeah, I think, you know, it's just like, and you also look like all these teams as well, of course, like at home are also above 500. But like you said, it's really hard to predict because like nothing's overwhelming like one way or another.
Exactly.
Like I think last year, like Denver wasn't even one of those teams over 500 on the road, but man, were they good at home. So, so like every time you played them in Denver, especially like with the altitude, it's like you were probably at a disadvantage. And that's a big reason why they went all the way. So, you know, this year it's like, I'm looking like, you know, obviously Minnesota has a pretty good record. Same thing with OKC at home.
Yeah.
But, you know, those are also teams that probably don't have quite the experience. I think Denver has also been pretty good, but they haven't maybe felt as like dominant at home this year as last year. And everything else, it's like a little bit weird. Yeah, the Clippers have had their moments. Your Suns have probably been like one of the best teams at home recently. I think you guys have won like 8 straight at home.
Yep.
So, you know, and I guess like with that, like, you know, do you think that gives, you know, having that home dominance and all these teams that are playing well on the road, do you think maybe that gives you guys, I guess, a little bit of an edge that you're putting it together, like chemistry wise?
Yeah, I sure hope so, man. You know, fingers crossed for that. Hopefully, if we're just specifically talking about the Phoenix Suns here, I just hope that obviously, one, health plays a factor, that we stay at least 98% healthy from now all the way to the playoffs, you know what I mean? And when we get deep into the playoffs. But also, it's like I mentioned, we need to win as many games as possible. And hopefully, we just start clicking at the right time. Even if that's like mid-March or late April, you know what I mean? Because that's kind of what I was trying to say earlier is like, I don't trust a lot of teams right now, but like, I don't know if I can fully judge them, including my Phoenix Suns, because, you know, these are sort of like the dog days of the NBA where it's like, we just got to get through March, then get through April, and then the playoffs start, then we'll turn it on. You know what I mean? And we're going to see a lot of the better teams maybe like kind of drop a little bit because again, they're just trying to get to the playoffs. So hopefully the Phoenix Suns can stay fully healthy, start clicking at the right time, and just be a force, you know, into the playoffs and, you know, hopefully all the way to the NBA Finals and everything.
I think, too, like, it helps to, at this point of the season, play a lot of the better teams because you're getting an idea for playoff basketball. And I think that's another reason why people are a little skeptical, like Minnesota, for example, because they have a pretty easy schedule down the stretch. And, you know, obviously they're a team who we haven't seen them do it in the playoffs. I mean, Anthony Edwards has been great in past years, but like as a team, like we haven't seen them win much or really anything. So like with, you know, guys like you guys with the Suns, you guys made the finals a couple years ago, and like the Clippers have veterans, the Nuggets just won a title. So like, and you guys, I think you guys, correct me if I'm wrong, you guys have like the toughest schedule left.
Yeah, we do.
So,
yeah, just real quick, I'm sorry to cut you off. I was going to say, I've kind of warmed up to the tougher schedule on the Suns part because it's sort of like you mentioned, that's sort of like the big battle you want to face before you start the playoffs. That's all I wanted to say. Sorry to cut you off, but I'm ready for this tough schedule. It's going to be, obviously, a lot of the games are going to be against championship contenders and, you know, some of the better teams in the East and West, but I think we're ready for it, man.
Yeah, those teams that, like, I don't know who will be by the end of the season because everyone's so close, but like those teams that are probably going to be like resting guys near the end of the year and taking a lot of time off, like they can get caught off guard pretty easily. So
exactly.
Yeah. I don't know if there's anything else in particular you wanted to say about any of those teams in the mix, or
I'll just repeat this again, man, and you're going to hear me say it on my channel, and if I'm on anybody else's show or your show again, every win matters, and I cannot stress that enough because you know that's what the coaches and all of them are preaching too, man. So that's it.
For sure. But, yeah, I don't know. If you want, we can move on. Well, we'll still kind of talk about one of these teams here, and I know this is something you really wanted to talk about too, and this is, you know, the LA Clippers. They were announced that they're rebranding for next season. They dropped like their logo, I think their court design as well, and also like 3 of their jerseys. You know, kind of just give me, what are your thoughts on this rebranding? Do you like it, or is it nasty?
I'm a little more optimistic about really just a lot of jersey rebrand, or I should say uniform rebrands, but you get the point, jersey rebrands and everything. A little more optimistic than most people are, probably just because I'm a little old school in a way, and I like a lot of these newer jerseys and everything. Like I'm wearing the Sun City Edition hat right now. You know what I mean? I just love kind of that new stuff, the rebrands and everything. But I don't know, man. These were kind of cool, and like obviously the Clippers are a contender, and they're probably going to be contending for the next few years and everything. And I believe they got like a new stadium, or they have a new stadium on the way or something like that, or arena, whatever you want to call it. But I like these jerseys, man. If I remember correctly, weren't like the way they design them is kind of similar to what was those like 2000s teams and everything, like the mid 2000s and all that. I just really like the way they look. I think personally, the red one is my favorite. I can't really explain why. I don't really have a hot take or great analysis. I just really like the way they look. And I don't know if you heard about this, but they're coming up with something called the wall, which is pretty much where I believe you have to be like a real Clippers fan to buy tickets. You have to like show your merchandise and everything. And if you aren't a Clippers fan, you get caught or whatever, they like take your tickets and move you somewhere else. That's pretty cool. It's kind of like a college environment. I hope my Phoenix Suns do something like that one day. But yeah, when we were talking, going over the show, I was like, we should talk about the Clippers uniforms. I think they're pretty cool. Do you like them or do you hate them?
So I guess so my thoughts on this, I think, well, first of all, like the court, I will say like just courts in general, like I guess I took them for granted is what I should say. It's not that like the court is bad by any means, because I think it's unique, but like I took them for granted, and I actually like this a little bit better than maybe those other courts that we saw in the in-season tournament, because I always thought like it'd be cool to see like a blue court or a red court or a purple court until you see them, and then and then you're like, nah, like but so I think the court was okay. The logo,
I don't have too many optimistic thoughts on that, but I don't hate it either. Like they put out a graphic kind of explaining it, but I'm just like,
I like the concept, I'll say that, but there's too much like of a like almost kind of like this or this color blue on it, and it's like I hate that there's logos that are just like all almost one color. Yeah, like you got to be unique a little bit.
When I think of the Clippers, I think red. I don't know why, I do.
Yeah, so. And like I'm like there's a lot of us that I feel like could make a better logo than that. I mean, like you do thumbnails, I do thumbnails like for videos, and I'm like, well, what the heck? They could have just asked one of us. It would have been probably cooler.
Dude, there are so many people that design jerseys out there, sometimes just for fun. Like they don't even get paid to do it, and sometimes they make better jerseys or logos or designs than the ones they actually put out. You know what I mean?
Right. And like with the jerseys, I will say I liked two of the jerseys a lot. Like I think they look pretty cool. The one that's like Los Angeles, I think it's the white one maybe, or maybe it's the red
that
one.
Yeah.
I don't like the way it like meshes. Like it looks like hard to read, like like it looks like if you were trying to read Los Angeles through like a TV that's like the static is playing over it or something.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
So that's probably my only complaint with the jerseys, but I do like the idea that they are like rebranding, especially because like you said, the new arena is on the way next year. So it's like it makes sense, but I feel like maybe there's a missed opportunity with the logo, especially, and it might seem dumb because everyone's like, you're not going to see the logo, you're going to see the court and the uniform. But like, I feel like what my mind resonates the most with the logo more than the uniform and the court. I don't know if that makes sense.
Final thing I'll say too, and I say this about all jerseys and uniforms and even courts, it's like we got to see them in person or on TV first, you know what I mean, to fully judge them. I know pictures have been released and everything, but I'm just like, I'd rather wait to see them on the court. But we'll see. I mean, it's a cool rebrand. I figured we could just talk about it,
Yeah, like I said, it is cool, and it's always nice to see teams rebrand over time. The only team that hasn't, my Bulls, but I think we got the nostalgia, I guess. So,
you guys don't need a rebrand.
But yeah, if you want, we can move on here to a team in the Eastern Conference who's been playing well this year, maybe even like exceeding expectations, you could say, and that is the Orlando Magic. This is a team who actually before the year thought they were going to be a playoff team this year, but there are a lot of people who thought, okay, just play in at max or lottery again. And Paolo Banchero has become an all-star, and Franz Wagner's played well. They've done it with people being out like Markelle Fultz and Wendell Carter, Gary Harris, Jonathan Isaac. So, and the other thing too is that the rest of this season they have the lowest win percentage for their remaining strength of schedule. So they have the easiest schedule that remains. Right now, tied for 7th, and as I'm looking at it, they're only a game out of the 5th seed, only maybe like 2 games or so out of the 4th seed. So how high do you think that this Magic team can climb in the standings before the year's over?
I'm rooting for them, man. I really hope they stay at least where they are. I just hope they make the playoffs is what I'm trying to say. Now, to try to answer your question, in a weird way, I feel like the East is kind of similar to the West. Like, again, you lose a few games and you could drop very far into the standings. But at the same time, if they currently are in the 5th seed and everything, I think that's a good spot to be in as of right now. Because, again, I know there's 2 months left, but, like, there's really not that many games left. You know what I mean? They've had a lot of injuries, but they've also won a lot of games through those injuries. And I'm super glad Paolo Banchero was an all-star. Franz Wagner, you could argue, is maybe a borderline future all-star. That's how good of a player he is. They got a bright young core over there. Seems like there's a lot of good chemistry over there. And again, man, like I know that I've kind of already said this. It's like a cop-out answer, but the Magic just got to win as many games as possible. I'm sure that city is on fire right now for that team. Just them how long has it been since they made the playoffs? It feels like forever, right?
And they did make it with Vucevic a few years, but they didn't really do anything.
Exactly. It's like it kind of seems like this sort of like rebuild, and even though they were in the playoffs not too long ago and everything, it's like this is the team they should be excited for. A lot of bright young stars, a lot of big, long, athletic guys and everything, and just young culture guys, I like to believe. And just win as many games as possible, Magic, because I would love to see you guys in the playoffs, and I would love, I just hope I like cheering for the underdog teams. You know what I mean? I feel like if the Magic made the playoffs, a lot of people would probably write them off, and that's fair. I mean, they're a young, inexperienced team and everything, but I feel like they would give whoever they play a lot of trouble. You know what I mean? I feel like it wouldn't be like an easy sweep.
Yeah, and with that, like I think Orlando and really, I guess the Pacers, like those are like the 2 teams in the East this year that have really, I guess, like kind of taken a step up, and they're kind of saying like, oh, we got next, essentially.
Yep, exactly.
And I like seeing the Magic, I guess, thrive, and I think like they have like 23 games left, like the easiest schedule remaining. So even if they win like 14-9, I think that would put them at 47 wins. That's like last year would have been the 5th seed. And I know like it's different maybe this year from last year, but like you also got Philly who's ahead of them, and Embiid is out. You got Miami who the regular season they probably
I don't trust them in the regular season.
Yeah. And then Indiana, they're kind of in a similar boat, but they don't have as easy of a schedule as Orlando, so that's why it's going to be a little harder. So I think like realistically, like they could get up to 5th and maybe 4th, because I mean the Knicks also have a tougher schedule, I believe, and
they've been struggling, haven't they, as of late?
They almost lost to the Pistons, and they're missing guys as well, so they could get up that high. But I'll say like I think that they will be a top 6 seed. I think that they'll avoid the play-in, and I think that's big because that means they'll be in the playoffs, and it might seem like I don't know if I believe it, but I think there's really a lot of teams you could say it about, but they're definitely a team you don't want to see in the first round, especially if you're a team like maybe Milwaukee, because, they have like Giannis, who's like the Greek freak, right? But they also have players who can match his size and his length, and they're led by Paolo Banchero. And I know a lot of people were kind of like upset, I guess, like with him because he traveled or whatever they said on that play against Detroit, and then after the game he was like kind of like crying. But it's like, at least for me, it's like tells me that he cares, like he actually like wants to win, like a guy who hasn't even made the playoffs yet, and he's happy that they could get a big win against the Pistons. And he's always a guy too who's like, he gives his teammates credit like first,
Yep.
which, there's a lot of players like when they get to that certain level, it's more so like, what did I do? Like, how did I do then? How did the team do? But he's more so like a team first guy, and you could tell that because I'm sure even if he wanted, like he could average like 30 a game, like if he took his enough shots. But I think it's big to have a leader like that who can really play both sides of the floor and be dependable on like down the stretch of games too. And you'll live with his mistakes. And I don't know. I think that they're a team that's going to be tough to get out.
I kind of feel like that whole Magic team sort of has that same thing in terms of like giving credit to their teammates. Like from what I've seen, it just seems like they have a happy locker room, if you will. And then like I'll be real with you, I didn't know much about Paolo Banchero coming out of college, but once he was drafted, man, I watched a lot of interviews and just kind of like stuff you'd see like on NBA TV or whatever, or on YouTube or whatever. And he just seems like a really mature kid for his age. And I also think playing with, Team USA, well, wasn't it this past summer or whatever? He played with Team USA. I feel like a lot of players that do that, like have bright futures in this league. So, he learned a lot from those guys that he played with, and he's had an incredible season. I was so happy when he was named an all-star. And if he's their leader going forward, I think that's a good thing. Plus he's had a couple of veterans here and there, around him and everything. And I think the future is bright for Orlando.
I agree. And hopefully, obviously, I'm a big Markelle Fultz guy. Hopefully he can get healthy because that's the other thing too. It's like, I forget who it was. If it was my guest last week, which would have been Trill Buckets. I don't know if it was him or if it was my guy Mo, but one of them said, the Magic are kind of making it like the players in the Magic are making it hard because so many of them are playing so well that it's like, I mean, obviously a guy like Paolo and Franz they're going to keep, but like they have so many guards that are playing well, and they have so many bigs.
Like Jalen Suggs,
Cole Anthony. Obviously, we've seen what Fultz can do in healthy, and like Gary Harris is going to be integral for the playoffs, I'm sure. But like it's making it hard, like who to decide upon with those guys, and so that's I think like what the biggest thing is. But the fact that they're all playing like pretty unselfish and not trying to be like, I need to get mine so I can prove I'm like the best guy. Like I think that's pretty cool.
And in my personal opinion, man, those are good problems to have. You know what I mean? Like that is a front office I would want to be part of, because it's like, who do we choose? Who do we keep going forward and all that? It's like, those are good problems to have,
Right. But yeah, if you want, we can move on to, I guess, their in-state rival, the Miami Heat. And, things got a little heated against the New Orleans Pelicans. It was a crazy brawl, and I believe like 5 people were suspended as a result, including Jimmy Butler. Nikola Jovic was suspended for a game, Najee Marshall, Jose Alvarado, and then Thomas Bryant got 3 games as well. I'm sure you saw the brawl. Like, I guess, like, what did you think of it? What did you make of it? And do you think they asked Jimmy Butler after the game if it'll be something that carries over next time they play? Do you think maybe it will carry over next time that they play?
Yeah, I think a lot of those do. Even if it's like we don't actually see anything, I feel like sometimes maybe words get exchanged that we don't like hear about until later on and everything. I didn't really have too many thoughts on this. I feel like it kind of set off a domino effect, though, because I felt like after that brawl, we saw like a couple other brawls. Like, wasn't the same night there was like another kind of fight or a scuffle or whatever? I believe that happened, and it just seemed like it set off a domino effect. I think the Najee Marshall suspension should have been at least a game more. Didn't he only get like 1 game?
Yeah.
I was like, didn't he like
he put his hands on?
Yeah, like, I'm like, you only suspended him 1 game, man. Like, come on, bro. Like, I have to be a selfish homer here. If Devin Booker did that, he would have been suspended like 5 games. You know what I mean? So I think that was kind of weak, but. And I gotta give credit where credit's due. The Miami Heat kind of made a joke out of it because they had like a watch party during the suspension. I don't know if you saw that. I thought that was funny. I think Jimmy Butler was kind of trolling the whole suspensions and everything. But yeah, it's definitely going to carry over next time. And I mean, obviously there's no room for violence or fighting in the league, but stuff's going to happen on the court. But I don't know. I would have given Najee Marshall a couple games at max, because 1 game suspension. Like, are you serious?
Yeah, I was a little surprised that it was only 1 game, especially like putting your hands on someone like that.
Yeah.
But I guess, like, you know, in the wise words of her, I guess in the words of Jimmy Butler, it was all Nikola Jovic's fault.
Yeah.
And that's just what he said, like on his Instagram or whatever. But I mean, really though, it will probably carry over. But this is also like just such a weird beef thing that, like, I mean, you think like the Heat and the Pelicans, like they don't go together. You know, like if it was like the Heat and the Magic, or the Heat and the Knicks, or the Heat and the Celtics, or the Heat and the Nuggets, the Lakers, teams they played like maybe in the playoffs, like on the West side, like I could see it maybe carrying over. Like the Pelicans, I really don't know if it will. But I mean, you even heard like Zion after, like he basically seemed pretty chill about it. Like he said that it wasn't like with bad intent, like originally with Kevin Love, who I think was kind of like what really started it essentially. And, you know, I think like moving forward, he's like, well, that's what they're doing. They're just standing up for their guys. Yeah. So overall, I don't know if it's like, I don't think it will be, this might be one of those rare cases where it doesn't carry over, but I just thought it was kind of ridiculous, and we had to talk about it a little bit. Yeah.
I don't really know where I'm going with this, but I remember when, like, it might have been Devin Booker and Jose Alvarado when they kind of were getting into like little scuffles here and there. And I forgot exactly what he said, but I remember Larry Nance had like a really mature answer to it. And I forgot exactly what he said, but I remember I featured it in my videos, and that sort of opened my eyes to like players they all take it differently, you know, like they all think of it differently. And if Zion had a good response, I believe it, because Larry Nance had a good response, and that was like a couple seasons ago, if I remember correctly. So it just is what it is, man. I mean, you know, what are you going to do?
I think it depends on the rep too, because I literally I don't know if you watched the Clippers Kings game the other day, but there was a play, I think Sabonis stole it. He was going for a fast break, and then Zubac kind of grabbed him from behind, and then he was kind of like grabbing him, and like they were running almost toward like the bench, but it was called a foul, and then they kind of just like patted each other and they like walked it off. But I'm thinking like, if that were Draymond Green, Sabonis, you might not be leaving with your head.
For real. I believe it.
So, I mean, like, it really just depends on who you're messing with and who's, I guess, like the guy on the other side of it. But, yeah, I don't know. I don't know if you had
by the way, I know I'm pointing out the obvious here, but Draymond Green has not changed, and I will die on that hill. He has not changed, and I hope he gets into another fight so he can get kicked out of the league.
No,
I know I sound salty and bitter, but it's true, man.
No, I don't.
He has not changed at all.
I don't see bitterness in facts, because it's true. I mean, you probably saw when he like smacked AD or whatever, like like literally, I think that was like his third game back too.
Yep.
So, anyways, like Draymond is just a nasty. But anyways, if you want, we can talk about a team that's been playing pretty nasty. And that is, I don't know why I've been saying the word nasty so much in this whole show. I don't think I've said it in every other episode combined this many times. But yeah, the Washington Wizards have not been good. And I think as of right now, they just lost today too, so now they're on a 12-game losing streak
after keeping Steph Curry scoreless for the first half or whatever it was.
Yeah, so it's not looking good for the Wizards. And I'm sure you remember earlier in the year when the Pistons were going on like their 28-game losing streak, and Kyle Kuzma said about them beating the Celtics at halftime in TD Garden, and he's like, well, he said like, well, it's just at this point you don't want to be that team. Are the Wizards that team?
Yes, they are. It's funny, man, because now look, oh boy, you can keep all of this in here too. Like, I'm encouraging you to keep this in here and to share it. I've been, and you and I have DM'd about this. I've been wrong on a lot of these teams that I say have bright futures. So I hope I didn't jinx the Orlando Magic when I said that earlier, although I truly do believe it. I was totally wrong about the Detroit Pistons. That's an understatement. That's the biggest L I've ever took in my life. And I was wrong about the Charlotte Hornets, but that's another conversation for another time. Maybe next time we do this, we'll talk about those teams. But I'm a little more optimistic about the Wizards. But that being said, and I've even tweeted this with somebody who covers the Wizards and tweets about them all the time. this is year one of a very, very, very long rebuild. You know what I mean? And I would know something about rebuilds. I'm a Phoenix Suns fan. You know what I mean? It was like before we got Chris Paul, it seemed like we were 3 or 4 years away from even sniffing the playoffs. You know what I mean? That was all obviously before Chris Paul got there. But yeah, man, they're just terrible, man. It's like they're one of the worst teams in the league for a reason. Obviously, the Jordan Poole thing didn't really work out the way I think they thought it was. Like, you at least need some kind of a building block. And that's kind of why, like, when Kyle Kuzma, like, re-signed or whatever, I was like, did he just do that for the money? Or, like, are they just going to trade him away at the deadline? Obviously, they didn't. And don't get me wrong, they have a few bright pieces over there, but it's like you don't really have anybody that is, like, quote, untouchable to an extent. And who knows what's going to happen with Jordan Poole. I guess Kyle Kuzma's there just to, you know, get the money, which is fine. I mean, I'm sure he lives there and everything. And, you know, you got to give some reason for the fans to be excited, but I don't know what they're doing. But I will say this, they have like probably 1 million draft picks, and I'm sure they got some salary cap, but it's not like it'd be like extremely unlikely if they were good next season. And if they did, it'd probably be like an overachievement. But again, I like, and I've tweeted about this, I've talked about this in my live shows. I like how they pretty much cleaned house, because didn't they like fire their coach? Dismiss their coach a few, not too long ago. I like how they cleaned house, and I really do like who is running their front office. I'm forgetting their names right now, but I really do like those two guys that are in charge. And I just kind of like how they're trying to build a direction, but that we don't know what that course is going to be for maybe a couple years. You know what I mean? It's going to be long. They're going to be terrible. They'll probably be fun to watch on offense and everything. But you need to give your fans a reason to be excited. And maybe this offseason, maybe they'll do something to be like, okay, now we see where the Wizards are going. But I'm a little more optimistic, man. At least they cleaned house. Sorry to go on this long rant, but at least they cleaned house and gave us Bradley Beal and just kind of moved on from everybody else. You know what I mean?
At least they gave y'all Bradley Beal. Like, thanks for Beal, guys. Like,
for real, like.
No, that is funny. But yeah, it's like, I don't know. They definitely are that team, for one. And it's crazy too, because I know the Pistons. They did lose the other night, and I mean, right now they're playing really close to my Bulls, which is nerve-wracking. But they've been better lately. Ever since they went on that 28-game losing streak, they've been playing teams closer. They've been playing better. I could see the Wizards being the worst record in the league by the time the season's over. And that's not a bad thing, because that's obviously good for the rebuild sake. Well, I guess it doesn't really matter now, because the bottom three teams all have the same chance at the first pick. But at least, like, you were saying, like, I've been wrong, or like about yourself, like that you've been wrong about like some stuff over the time.
Like the Pistons and Hornets.
I'll
forever take those L's.
I was pretty wrong about the Wizards, because I think my second short on my channel, I said the Wizards are going to be a team this year. You can't sleep on them. They could win on any given night. And
they're so bad, man.
I guess technically that's not wrong. They could win on any given night. Anyone could win, but they just don't. Like, it just doesn't happen. So, like, I'm not super high on what they have right now. I think the direction they're going is better, though. Like you said, a long rebuild is probably what it will be. I do like their draft pick, or technically traded for draft pick this past year, Bilal Coulibaly.
Yeah, thank you for saying that name. I meant to mention him earlier, but I didn't know how to fully pronounce his name.
I think personally, and I still stand on it, I think he's probably the most underrated player in this past draft, because
he's good, man.
I don't know if, like, he's not going to be a Victor Wembanyama, but he was teammates with Wemby last year, and I feel like he kind of went under the radar, and now you're seeing him. I mean, he was just in the Rising Stars Challenge as well. Like, I think he's a guy that, like, moving forward, he could be kind of like one of those key guys that you build your team around. So I'm happy that he's getting a chance, and I think he's versatile too. Like, he could do a lot of things on the floor. So I think that's one good thing. That's one good gem that the Wizards can bank on. But I don't know. It's just, they traded Gafford. That's my guy. They didn't really get like a whole lot back for that. But overall, it's just like a weird team. I'm a little surprised they didn't move
Trade Tyus Jones.
Tyus Jones, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know what you think about that though.
I mean, I just think who knows what's gonna happen. Let's take Kyle Kuzma out of the conversation for a minute. It's just get somebody to build around, get a couple building blocks. You know what I mean?
Mm.
And we'll just have to see. But I really do like their front office. And I'm not saying they know everything. And I'm not saying they're going to be like a contender in a couple of years. They're probably way far from that. But at least they have the direction really where it matters. You know what I mean? And maybe Kyle Kuzma, maybe having him will pay off. Maybe they can trade him down the road for some assets. And again, can't sleep on those million draft picks and all that salary cap space, man. You never know what could happen.
And we know where the direction is going to be the rest of this season.
Exactly. Yeah, they're tanking, man. And real quick, man, one more thing on that too. Even though I took that major L with the Pistons and everything, people kind of forget they were competitive in a lot of those games. Yeah. And people also forget this. The Spurs had a massive losing streak during the Pistons losing streak. You know what I mean? People forget about that. And I get it. Like the Pistons set a terrible NBA history record. You don't want to be a part of that. But people forget the Spurs were just as bad. The Wizards. I'm probably forgetting about a couple other teams, man.
The Clippers lost 6 straight earlier this year.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I think the Warriors did too or something. But yeah, I don't know. It's right now it's not looking good for the Wizards, but obviously every rebuild starts somewhere. Hopefully, in maybe 5 years from now, we're thinking differently.
This is year one, man. I'm telling you, that front office is bright. There was a really good interview that they had during the middle of the summer where they were introducing, I think it was the GM and the assistant GM and everything. It's a really good listen, man. They pretty much acknowledged, hey, we have to clean house and we got to start over. And it's a really good interview, man.
For sure. And speaking of teams that should clean house and start over, but a team that hasn't and really should,
Chicago Bulls.
And I'm campaigning that they should and they need to. So do it.
Please, Bulls, please.
Yeah. My Chicago Bulls, but not with the current team, because right now, let's stay frustrated at the current team. Let's talk about some of the good old days, but still a little bit of a, I guess, sour spot, I would say. Because some of these former Chicago Bulls players, most notably guys like Scottie Pippen, Horace Grant, Luke Longley, they're campaigning to, I guess, go on a tour to essentially expose the Last Dance documentary for where it wasn't maybe fair or accurate or something like that.
Yeah.
And so I guess what do you really make of them campaigning to gather some of the former Bulls together to do this?
Well, I'll be honest with you guys and all the viewers out there. To be honest, I really don't know too much about this, but from what I'm gathering from it, I think it's kind of fair. I'm not going to lie. I enjoyed the Last Dance documentary. I mean, I'm not going to lie. Recently I was man, I kind of want to rewatch that again. But again, everybody has their piece. Everybody has, their side of the story. I'm a huge believer in that, man, whether it's basketball or it's life or anything. There's two sides to every story. There's two sides of the coin. You know what I mean? So from what I'm gathering, if they're getting together to kind of tell their side of the story, I'm all for that, man. Hell, make a documentary out of it. You know what I mean? I know it's not that simple, but just do it, man. But hopefully they can say their piece. I don't know, man. That just seems like a really tough situation to be in. Hopefully they're able to speak their truth, if you will.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely, like you said, everyone has their own opinion. So, if guys like Scotty or Horace Grant or Luke Longley or some others, I don't know who the others are. I know those were kind of the headline people. But I think, if those guys feel a certain way, then they definitely can go on a tour, I guess to say it. Now, of course, with that, the price that comes with that, there's also a big following of guys like Michael Jordan and Phil Jackson who aren't campaigning against this documentary because, of course, a lot of it is told from their perspective.
Yeah.
And really, I'm a little bit, I mean, I know why Scotty's upset. He's mostly upset probably from that play with Kukoc where he got the ball at the end and he was kind of depicted in a bad light on the bench. But for the most part, I mean, he also did get interviewed too for even a full episode, actually, was featured on him. So, I'm a little surprised, maybe why he felt quite that way. I think for the most part, of course, the facts of what happen like on the court are there, but it's mostly just the stuff behind the scenes. And like that's kind of like where the problem lies. So especially like competing against guys like Michael Jordan or Phil Jackson, it's like they can go on tour, but it's up to the other people if they want to listen to what Scottie Pippen or Luke Longley has to say over some of those other guys, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that totally makes sense, man.
But yeah, I don't know. I don't know how it's going to do. It might not even happen. I would be interested to see who all, I guess, jumps on this campaign.
Yeah.
But I think Scottie Pippen is definitely the one who's probably like the most upset still about it. But we'll have to see what happens.
I think what needs to happen, and look, obviously I can't explain Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen's relationship, but maybe those two just need to legit sit down and just talk and have cameras rolling. You know what I mean? I don't know. Like, I know Michael Jordan's way too busy and all that. I'm sure Scottie Pippen's got things going on too. And maybe those two just need to just sit down and talk it all out on camera. No interviewers, just have them two just sit and talk. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
We got the wrong Jordan and Pippen relationship together last year. Yep. And it just ended recently, but hopefully, Mike and Scottie, they can figure things out.
Exactly.
But yeah, if you want, we can move on here to the NBA Fast Money mini game. This should be exciting. And I'll explain the rules for anyone new that's watching. My guy, Suns Geek here, I'm going to ask him 5 NBA questions. He'll have 60 seconds to answer. If, let's say, I ask you the first question and you don't know, you could say pass. I could come back to it at the end. And like if there's enough time, and if your goal is to try and think like the average person would. So maybe a certain answer, maybe you would say like LeBron, but maybe like the people would say like Steph Curry or something like that. So you'd probably want to say like what the people might say. You know what I mean? So we're gonna see how this goes. Again, there'll be 60 seconds because we know how there's lag with being in two different places. And yeah. Are you good to go? You want any other? You ready?
I think so.
Alrighty. The timer will start like as soon as I read the first question. So, alrighty.
Real quick. I'm sorry. Real quick.
No, you're good. You're good.
Am I trying to answer it as fast as possible?
Not necessarily. Not necessarily as fast as possible, but as long as you can get it in the 60 seconds.
Okay.
So, like,
I think I got it.
You can take 59 seconds if you'd like, but
okay.
Yeah. So
got it.
Let me
cool. Kind of like golf.
All right. In 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Give me an NBA team that had multiple All-Stars this year.
You'd think I would know that because I love the All-Star stuff. I'm like blanking out right now.
You could pass if you need it.
Boston Celtics.
Okay, give me a current player averaging 8 or more assists.
Wow, I'm like totally blanking out, man. You said I got 60 seconds, right?
You got about 30 seconds now.
Oh, gee. Oh, yeah. Steph Curry.
Okay, give me a player, past or present, who's played for the Suns and Pistons.
Oh my God, pass.
Okay, give me an NBA team that was founded since 1980.
Los Angeles Lakers.
Okay, give me a team that's exceeding expectations this year.
Oklahoma City Thunder.
Okay, you got OKC in. Okay,
Holy crap, that was intense, dude. That caught me off guard. That I must have missed the first part of the rules. I was like, oh crap, I only have like I thought it was like 60 seconds per question. I was like, oh my God.
Oh no. So okay,
I froze, dude.
Well, that is good because this is the first time we're doing it. I will give you a chance.
I like that.
I did do this with I think a few other guests though. The third question, it was one you passed, you didn't answer, and I was give me a player, past or present, who's played for the Suns and Pistons. If you can think of one by the time I get to that question, like as I'm going over it, I'll give you the points for that. So
Thinking right now.
okay, but in the meantime, I'm gonna reveal how you did on the other ones. So the first question, give me an NBA team that had multiple All-Stars this season. You said the Boston Celtics. That was big time. No, that was big time.
Oh,
You got the number one answer on
let's
that.
go. I thought it
And
was wrong for some reason.
no, and you got 37 points on that as well. So that was actually huge. The next answers were the Bucks. Your Phoenix Suns were third. So it's a good thing you held off on that and said Boston. Lakers, Clippers, Sixers, Minnesota, and the Knicks. So, but you did get the number one answer, which was huge. Okay, so give me a current player averaging over 8 assists per game this season. You did say Steph Curry.
I don't know why I said Steph Curry.
I think that was just in the.
I like choked.
That was just like a spur of the moment, like type of thing. I think that was the question you realized. You're like, oh shoot, I have 30 seconds.
Yeah, I was like, oh crap.
He unfortunately was not on there because he is not averaging 8 assists. The players that are though in the order they were from the results, Tyrese Halliburton was number 1. And then other guys on here were Trae Young, Luka, Jokic.
Why didn't I say Trae Young? I should have just said Trae Young.
Harden, Sabonis, and Fred VanVleet.
Harden's averaging 8 assists.
He is, yes.
Holy shit.
Yeah. And then I'm a little surprised Fred VanVleet was too. He got like
right.
Yeah, I think he got
like is on the Rockets, and they're not. They've underachieved sort of. Like I didn't expect them to be that good, but I thought they'd be a little better than what they are.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so the third answer though, you still have 37 points for Boston. Give me a player, past or present, who has played for the Suns and Pistons. Have you been able to think of one?
I should really know this, man. This is my ballpark. You know what I mean?
This is your ballpark, and it could be a current player, but it also could be a former player.
I'm drawing a blank, man. I don't know. I feel like I know it, but I don't, man. Suns and Pistons.
I'm trying to look if there's someone on your wall.
There has to be somebody, man, that played Suns and Pistons.
I thought maybe the guy that's number 1 was on your wall, but I'm not seeing him right now, unless I'm blind. It wasn't Alvin Adams.
No.
I just see like a big Alvin Adams picture. So you don't know, or
Suns and Pistons. I don't know, man.
Okay, that is tough. But the top answer, and this is what I thought was on your wall, was Grant Hill.
Oh, I feel so stupid. How did I not think of Grant Hill? We revitalized his career when he was here.
Yeah.
Before he retired.
There were some other ones on here though. Antonio McDyess got some points.
Yeah, I forgot about him.
Brandon Knight.
Oh, why did I forget? I'm a failure, man.
The Morris Bros. But some of these were kind of hard though. Like,
yeah, I'm like Suns and Pistons. Like, what?
I think well, there is one that's currently on the Suns, but he didn't really get any point. It's Saban Lee. That was the only one. So
you can keep this part in here if you want to. I don't know how you're going to edit this, but I take a major L for the Suns Pistons question. I just completely blanked out.
You're all good. But still, I mean, still got 37 points. The fourth one, give me an NBA team that's been founded since 1980. I don't think I remember what you even said.
I said the Lakers. I don't know why I said the Lakers.
Yeah, you said okay. I
should have said like the 1980. Were the Spurs around in the 80s?
They were.
Yeah. Damn, that's a good question. Founded since the 80s. Can I still answer this?
You know what? I'll let you answer it because the last one you did not. So I'll put your answer on here.
Founded since the 80s.
Well, since 1980. So it could have been anything recent to like 90s, 2000.
The Minnesota Timberwolves?
They were on there. So that did get you.
I'm just answering this for fun at this point. I'm like, I
will give you the points for that. That was number 3 on there. It wasn't number 1, but it was number 3. And that got you 17 points.
Let's go.
So not too bad. Got you 17. Number 1 was Charlotte, and number 2 was the Raptors.
I should have thought of those teams.
And then Minnesota, Miami, Orlando, Memphis, and Dallas. So that puts you at 54 points. And the last one, give me a team that is exceeding expectations this season. I thought you were going to say the Orlando Magic because we did talk about them earlier in the show.
I should have.
Well, you actually said the right answer because the Thunder were number 1, 31 points.
Let's go.
So that is big time. That puts you at 85 points overall. How do you think that is?
Top 4, top 5.
I don't know where it is. I'd have to look at the things.
Top 4, top 5.
Oh, I should have revealed the answers too. So the Thunder, the Pacers, Magic, Timberwolves, Knicks, and the Cavs were all the teams on there.
Yep.
I think you are tied with another person. But I think out of fairness, I will probably, for the seeding wise, I'll probably give the other person the edge just because I did let you answer afterwards.
Yeah.
Overall, I mean, still 85 points. I think that's the only tie that I've actually had in all of these so far, too, which is kind of crazy.
Go.
You were tied with, who is it? You were tied with my guy Price, who actually just won the most recent tournament I did. So that's kind of cool. But yeah, I still think, 85 is not bad. I think in the show they try to aim for like 100. So right around the corner. What do you think?
Sweet. Yeah. Sounds good, man.
Yes, sir. But overall, I mean, it was pretty good there. Definitely clutched up with those last couple. And I think it was a good show overall. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. Thank you guys for watching. You got any other final thoughts you want to say before we wrap this thing up?
Yeah, man. Just glad to be recording once again with you. It felt seamless, you know what I mean? And if you guys are just curious what's going on with the Phoenix Suns, man, I'm consistently uploading videos, and especially when the playoffs roll around, we'll be doing live shows. Have to get you back on there too, man. But yeah, if it has to deal with the Phoenix Suns, I'm going to upload a video about it. And just have to brag about this real quick. At the time of this recording, I just passed 9,000 subscribers. So if there's ever a time to subscribe now. And thanks so much for having me, man.
Yes, sir. Everyone, go check out Suns Geek if you haven't already. Get him to 10K. There's got to be 1,000 of you out there. I just know it. But yeah, again, hopefully you guys enjoyed. Thank you guys for watching, and we're out. Peace.